From the moment Officer Mark Delaney met Rex, he knew the dog was special. Rex wasn't the loudest, the biggest, or even the fastest pup in the Canine Academy. But there was something in his amber eyes, a fierce intelligence, a razor-sharp focus, that set him apart. When the trainers released him onto the course, he didn't charge ahead like the others. He studied, he calculated, then he moved with quiet, surgical precision. It was the same way Mark approached policing. The instructors paired them instantly. Over 5 years, they became inseparable. Mark was a decorated officer, sharp-minded and meticulous. Rex became his shadow, never more than a few feet away. Together, they patrolled some of the city's roughest neighborhoods. They kicked down doors during drug busts, tracked missing persons through rain and mud, chased down suspects who thought they could outrun a trained canine with a nose for fear. And every single time, they brought each other home. When off-duty, Mark took Rex everywhere, to the station gym, to weekend barbecues, even home for holidays. To his nieces and nephews, Rex wasn't a police dog. He was family. But even then, Rex never truly switched off. He always positioned himself between Mark and the door, always scanned a room twice, always listening. Other officers joked about their bond, calling Rex Mark's silent backup. But everyone in the department knew, if something ever went wrong, Rex would never hesitate to throw himself in the line of fire. That loyalty was tested during a late summer evening. Mark and Rex had just ended their shift when a call came in. Suspected break-in at an abandoned warehouse on the industrial edge of the city. Backup was 10 minutes away, but Mark was close. Too close to ignore it. He flicked on the sirens and turned the wheel. As they approached, the streetlights flickered above the rusted metal structure. It looked deserted. Mark reached over and unlatched the back cage. Rex stood, poised and alert, ears forward. One nod, and they moved. Inside, shadows danced over cracked concrete and broken pallets. Rex stiffened. Mark raised his flashlight. And that's when the shot rang out. One bullet, one sound that would shatter everything. Mark collapsed to the ground, blood blooming across his chest. And Rex didn't run. He bolted into the darkness, teeth bared, chasing a threat the world hadn't seen yet, but he had. The unstoppable duo was about to face the one test they never trained for: survival. The silence after the gunshot was deafening. Mark lay sprawled on the warehouse floor, his body limp, blood spreading quickly beneath him. His bulletproof vest had absorbed some of the impact, but not enough. The bullet had entered high, just beneath the collarbone, dangerously close to his heart. His radio crackled uselessly as it slipped from his hand. But Rex wasn't focused on the radio. He was focused on the scent. The shooter was already fleeing, heavy boots echoing against the concrete as he darted down a narrow hallway. Rex didn't wait for backup. He took off, a streak of fury and purpose, weaving through shadows and broken crates. Moments later, a scream echoed from deeper in the building. By the time backup units arrived, sirens blaring and tires screeching, the suspect was pinned against the wall, bloodied and gasping, with Rex standing over him, teeth bared. Officers had to call Rex off twice. He was still locked in fight mode, refusing to move until the cuffs clicked into place. Then, as if remembering, Rex turned and bolted back toward the main room. He found Mark where he'd fallen, barely breathing. His chest rose in shallow, strained heaves. Rex nudged his partner's face gently, then pawed at his shoulder, whining softly, then louder. No response, just a pale face and blood, a trail of it, bright red, and slick under Rex's paws. EMTs rushed in, working furiously to stabilize the officer. "He's fading fast," one shouted. "Get him on the gurney. Now." Rex tried to jump into the ambulance but was held back. "You can't go, buddy," a paramedic whispered, holding him firmly by the vest strap. Rex barked once, then again, louder, panicked, angry, confused. At the hospital, the trauma team worked for hours. Mark had gone into cardiac arrest, once in the ambulance, and twice more on the table. They removed the bullet fragments, repaired torn vessels, and induced a coma to reduce swelling in the brain. The prognosis was grim. No response to stimuli. Brain activity is minimal, the doctor told the gathered officers later that night. You should prepare for the worst. Meanwhile, Rex was confined to a recovery kennel in the K9 unit, limping slightly from his own injury. Just a graze, but enough to need stitches. He refused to eat. He howled through the night until the department made an unusual call. They would allow Rex to visit the ITU. Mark was alive, but for how long? Rex wasn't ready to let go. The intensive care unit was cold, quiet, and sterile, an unnatural place for a creature like Rex. 2 days had passed since the shooting. Mark was still in a medically induced coma, hooked up to machines that beeped and blinked in quiet rhythm. Tubes ran from his arms and nose. His face, usually so animated and focused, looked pale and still, a shell of the man Rex had followed through fire and chaos. When the elevator doors opened and Rex stepped out, the nurses paused. It wasn't every day a police dog was escorted into an ICU. But after seeing Rex's behavior, his refusal to eat, his persistent pacing, his mournful howls, the department and hospital made a rare exception. Rex was outfitted in a service harness and escorted gently toward Mark's room. A young nurse held her breath as he passed. She could see the limp in his hind leg, the stitches still fresh. As Rex entered the room, something in him shifted. He didn't lunge or bark. He didn't sniff the equipment. Instead, he walked slowly to the side of the bed, looking up at the figure beneath the white sheets. He let out a soft whine. His tail gave a faint, uncertain wag. Then, carefully, he rested his head on Mark's chest, just above the spot where the bullet had entered. For a full minute, no one said a word. Behind the glass, several officers watched, some holding back tears. Nurses looked on, awed by the silent reverence of the moment. Rex didn't move. His ears twitched. His breathing slowed. He closed his eyes. "It's like he knows," someone whispered. Doctors entered shortly after to run another round of tests. The results were disheartening. Mark's brain showed minimal activity. Reflexes were unresponsive. One physician delivered the harsh truth: if there's no improvement within the next 24 hours, we may need to discuss withdrawing support. The words echoed like gunfire in the hearts of everyone listening. That night, Rex refused to leave the room. Each time a nurse tried to guide him out, he returned to the same spot at Mark's bedside. He barked at the door if it closed. He growled at the janitor's mop. He curled up on the floor and kept one eye on his partner, as if waiting for any sign, any twitch, any movement that told him the fight wasn't over. The machines kept humming. Mark didn't stir. But Rex still believed something the doctors couldn't see. Morning came heavy with silence. The doctors had done all they could. Mark's condition hadn't improved. No responses. No reflexes. The scans told a grim, unchanging story. The recommendation was clear: prepare the family. Let his partner say goodbye. Mark's parents arrived just after sunrise, hollow-eyed and holding each other's hands like lifelines. Behind them, Chief Ramos and several officers from the precinct stood in respectful silence. The hospital had granted one final visit for Rex before the machines were turned off. When Rex entered, the mood in the room shifted. He walked differently, slow, hesitant, like he already knew. The nurses guided him to the side of the bed, the way they had days before. But this time, he didn't immediately climb up. He stood still, staring at Mark, ears tilted, head low. Then he leaped gently onto the mattress, pressing his body against Mark's side. His head rested near Mark's neck, and he let out a long, quivering whine. It wasn't just grief, it was heartbreak. Those watching felt it in their bones. A nurse dabbed her eyes. Mark's mother stepped forward to stroke Rex's head, whispering, He loved you so much, boy. You were his whole world. Then something happened. Rex tensed. His nose twitched. His ears perked sharply. He lifted his head from Mark's chest and stared at him, as if sensing something beneath the skin, beyond the noise of the machines. He let out a low growl, not one of warning, but of urgency. Then a short, sharp bark. Everyone flinched. The chief raised an eyebrow. It's he. Rex barked again, louder. He began pawing at Mark's chest gently, his claws tapping against the hospital gown. A nurse rushed to the monitor. No change. Wait. She leaned closer, frowning. One of the lines on the EEG, previously flat, showed a tiny flicker. Doctor, she called out. Get in here. Rex barked again and wouldn't stop. His body was rigid now, as if something deep in his instincts had woken up. He pressed his head firmly into Mark's ribs, whining louder and louder. The doctor burst in, followed by 2 more nurses. What is it? He asked, annoyed. The nurse pointed. There's activity. It just started. All eyes turned to the monitor. Another flicker. Then 2. The room held its breath. Rex let out one more bark, then sat perfectly still, staring at his partner. Something was happening. Something no machine had caught, but Rex had felt it first. The doctor leaned in, eyes narrowing on the monitor. I said, check that again, he ordered, disbelief thick in his voice. The nurse, already 1 step ahead, was scanning the readings. It's real. EEG just spiked. That's not artifact. That's activity. Everyone in the room was frozen. Even the machines seemed quieter, as if waiting for confirmation. Rex stood alert beside Mark's bed, unmoving. His ears twitched. His eyes locked on Mark's face. He seemed to be holding his breath with the rest of them. The doctor moved quickly now. Run a pupil check, full reflex test, and prep for another CT scan. We might have misjudged his window. As a nurse leaned over with a flashlight, Rex let out a low warning growl. It's okay, boy, she whispered, holding a steady hand up. I'm just checking him. She gently opened one of Mark's eyes. The flashlight flashed across the pupil, and for just a second, it contracted. Reflex response, she said in disbelief. It's weak, but it's there. The officer nearest the door took a step back, as if the moment was too big to be real. You mean he's waking up? No, the doctor said carefully, but his brain is trying to. In the corner, Mark's mother gasped softly. The tightness in her face cracked into something between hope and fear. Does that mean he has a chance? The doctor hesitated, then gave a slow nod. A small one, but it's more than we had 5 minutes ago. Rex, now seated again, leaned forward and gently nudged Mark's arm. The movement was tender, almost pleading. When nothing happened, he let out a soft whimper, and then Mark's finger twitched. Everyone saw it. The nurse dropped her pen. Did you see that? Try stimulus. The doctor barked, instantly energized. Let's confirm that wasn't involuntary. The team began running tests. Light touches, verbal commands, hand pressure. At first, nothing. Then, just as the doctor was about to stop, Mark's fingers curled slightly. A murmur left his throat, almost like a groan. Get neurology down here now, the doctor said. This just turned into a recovery protocol. Outside the room, the hallway had filled with officers, nurses, and staff. Whispers of the miracle spread fast. The dog knew before the doctors. As for Rex, he didn't bark again. He simply lay beside Mark, resting his head on the bed, content. His tail gave a soft wag. Something inside him had told him not to give up. And now, neither would anyone else. The hospital room, once quiet and solemn, now buzzed with cautious hope. Mark was still unconscious, but the signs were undeniable. Brain activity was rising. Reflexes were returning. Neurology ran their tests twice to be sure, but both times, The results pointed to the same conclusion. Mark wasn't slipping away anymore. He was slowly, painfully climbing back. Doctors called it unexpected improvement. Nurses called it incredible. But every officer on the scene had their own word for it. Rex, the canine who never left his partner's side. The dog who barked when machines said nothing. The silent sentinel who sensed life returning when all logic said it was gone. By the end of the week, Mark's breathing tube was removed. A few hours later, he blinked. At first, the room was full of professionals, neurologists, trauma surgeons, specialists of every kind. But the moment Mark's eyes fluttered open, and he croaked out one hoarse, mangled word, the only person they called in was four-legged. Rex. It was barely audible, a scratch of sound across cracked lips. But Rex heard it. He stood instantly, tail rising high, ears forward. As soon as the nurse opened the door, he bounded inside, limp and all, and leaped gently onto the side of the bed. His nose went straight to Mark's hand, nuzzling it. Then came the softest sound in the room, a breathless chuckle from the man who wasn't supposed to wake up. Mark's fingers twitched again. This time, they found fur. Tears weren't uncommon in a hospital, but this moment broke everyone. The toughest officers wiped their eyes in silence. Even the chief, a hard-edged veteran of 25 years, turned away to hide the emotion cracking his face. Mark couldn't talk much. His throat was weak, his body frail. But when the doctors asked if he knew where he was, he nodded. When they asked who this was, placing a hand on Rex's collar, Mark gave a ghost of a smile. My partner. Recovery wouldn't be quick. There were surgeries ahead, months of rehab, speech therapy, and physical training. Mark's body had taken massive damage, but his will hadn't. And neither had Rex. The hospital granted a special exception. Rex was allowed to visit daily. Nurses said his presence sped up Mark's healing. His vitals improved when Rex lay nearby. His spirits lifted when the door creaked and paws patted in. What science couldn't explain, instinct already knew. The bond they shared was more than handler and dog. It was brotherhood. It was survival. It was something that not even death could break. The first time Mark stood on his own, the entire physical therapy room went still. His legs trembled. His grip on the walker was white-knuckled. Sweat beaded on his forehead. But his jaw was set with quiet determination. Every part of his body ached, and his chest still burned from the surgery scars. But none of that mattered, because just a few feet away, Rex was waiting. Sitting tall, ears perked, tail tapping slowly on the floor, Rex watched his partner like he was watching a bomb squad defuse a live device. Eyes locked, unmoving, focused. And that was all Mark needed. He took one shaky step forward, then another. The therapists clapped quietly, grinning wide. Mark was ahead of schedule, remarkably ahead. Every milestone that had been projected to take weeks, he was hitting in days. And every single one of those steps was powered by a simple goal: getting back to Rex. Each morning, the hospital granted Rex early access. Officers from the department would escort him in and let him rest near the bed while Mark worked through his rehab exercises. If Mark was having a rough day, Rex would place a paw gently on his leg, reminding him that he wasn't doing it alone. By the second week, Mark could walk 20 feet without support. By the third, he was laughing again. And one afternoon, during a rare moment of quiet, he finally asked the question that had been on his mind for days. Did he really know I was waking up? The nurse looked at him, then at Rex, who was curled at the foot of the bed, eyes half closed but still alert. Doctor said it was coincidence, she said gently. Said maybe it was instinct. Mark shook his head, a tired smile tugging at his lips. That dog's got more sense than half the tech in this building. The story had already spread through the city. Paulus K9 senses partners return before doctors do. It had gone viral. News crews requested interviews. Animal behaviorists wanted to study Rex. but the department declined most requests. This wasn't about fame. This was about healing. The department quietly submitted Rex for a commendation, a first of its kind. Not for bravery in the field, though he had that too, but for loyalty that defied reason, for devotion that refused to quit, for love that could not be trained, only earned. And as Mark stood beside him, stronger now, breathing easier, he looked down and whispered, "You didn't just save my life. You brought me back." 6 months later, the sun rose over the precinct with golden clarity, casting long shadows across the parking lot. Inside the building, a ceremony was underway, quiet but packed with people. Officers in uniform stood shoulder to shoulder. The chief wore his dress blues. Mark, now in full health though with a noticeable stiffness in his shoulder, stood at the front with a calm expression, and Rex by his side, wearing a fresh polished badge on his collar. The chief stepped forward, clearing his throat. "Today," he said, "we're not just honoring a fellow officer. We're honoring a bond that goes beyond protocol and badge numbers, a bond that brought one of our own back from the edge." He turned to Rex and held up a framed certificate. For unwavering loyalty, for instinct that outpaced machines, and for a heart that never gave up, Officer Rex is hereby awarded the Departmental Medal of Valor. Applause erupted, and even Mark had to blink back tears as he knelt beside Rex and hugged him tightly. Cameras flashed, but Rex, true to form, didn't flinch. He only looked at Mark and wagged his tail once, slow and steady. The ceremony ended, but the moment lingered. Later that afternoon, Mark stood at the edge of the precinct's K9 yard, watching as Rex sprinted across the grass, chasing a well-worn ball. His limp was barely visible now, just a soft hitch in the stride. He was older, he'd been through war, in a way, but he still ran like a dog with a mission. Then Mark pulled out something from his jacket, a small leather collar, gently worn, the name tag still scratched from years of service. He knelt down. "Come here, partner." Rex trotted over, panting, ears up. Mark removed the duty vest from Rex's back and clipped the old collar on instead. It was a simple thing, but symbolic, because today was Rex's last day on duty. The department had offered to retire him early, and there had only ever been one choice for who he'd go home with. Mark smiled as he stood. "You've done enough, buddy. It's time to just be a dog again." They walked side by side toward the gate, no longer officer and K9, but best friends, both survivors of something deeper than bullets or battles, something only they truly understood. As they reached the parking lot, Rex paused, looked back at the precinct, then forward again, and with a final wag of his tail, he trotted ahead into the sun.